I watched all 34 snaps of center Jake Majors' performance versus the Baltimore Ravens. And, they can't all be positive reviews, guys. Sometimes we got to get into the complexities of evaluating players. And with that said, I want to talk about what Jake Majors did versus the Baltimore Ravens. I think the first thing that stood out to me on tape is the fact that he didn't have the most ideal matchup for Jake Majors because he was lined up for a pretty good portion of his snaps against, I don't know if it's Basil or Basil Okoye, who is a prospect who's coming in from Nigeria, who's about, 6'6", 350 pounds plus. There was a little bit of a strength gap, and that did show up even on plays where I'm going to show you where there was some positivity to the rep. I think you could also kind of read under the radar. You could read underneath everything and see oh boy, man, as soon as we go to something that's like inside zone or duo or a gap, we're going to have some problems blocking this guy up, man, because he's getting a push here. This is not going to be good. First thing I noticed there, guys, and it didn't take long for eventually Jake Majors to get, flagged on a play here, and that was unfortunate because I think before he actually got that flag, there were a couple of reps here where I went, okay, there's a strength gap here, but he's holding up. He's doing his job, especially when we're looking at things like stretch and, outside zone to where you're just moving laterally and we're doing the best we can to take away an angle for him to break through and disrupt the play. I thought the young man performed fairly well in those roles. However, when I was looking at a few other sets and I was watching a few other things here, there were times that Jake Majors just, number one, benefited because there was a lack of experience on the other side of the football to where a guy just really had no idea where to go. There's one snap in particular where I just couldn't help but laugh because the young man just flowed to the wrong side of the ball, and Jake Majors was just standing there going, I don't know what you want me to do. The guy didn't go to the right side of the play. What do you want me to do here? But then there was also some plays to where I kind of noticed oh boy, Jake Majors is whiffing out there too. This is not a good look. This is a guy that's now in his second year, had a full offseason to prepare his body, spent, the vast majority, if not the entirety of last season on the practice squad with an ability and a time frame to actually develop. I was hoping to see a little bit more out of Jake Majors, if I'm going to be honest. It wasn't a player to be fair about that I was ever high on. You guys know that I didn't give him the most glowing reviews when I spoke about him. But, I was intrigued because, there's what I think and there's what the coaching staff thinks. And, there's a new offensive line coach coming in. Coaching staff could have a different viewpoint about things. The front office could have a different viewpoint about things. I didn't see anything in this game in particular, guys, if I'm being real, that made me think to myself I got this evaluation wrong. I saw this the wrong way. That's not how I walked away from this game feeling about anything that this young man put on tape, if I'm being real about it. With that said, I did think that he had, just to be honest about the full evaluation, I thought he had one hell of a good rep in the game in terms of a pass set to where there was a little twist, a little stunt going on there. And I thought Jake Majors did a really good job of passing off a guy and picking up a guy on the stunt. I thought that was if he keeps this up, then there's going to be a lot of positive film out there. It's not ultimately how it ended, guys. But, there were some moments here and there to where, you could see Jake Majors, he flashed a couple of times on tape. I don't think it was good enough to hold over the mistakes with the holding penalties where, he gets overmatched and held on a play. I don't think it, makes up for the fact that even as a guy now in his second year, kind of playing with this, this particular organization, even though it is, some differences in terms of the actual scheme in the system, he looked a little lost. Compared to what I was expecting to see from a guy that's this far into, the process, I was hoping to see more because there were some encouraging reports coming out of camp saying look, man, the guy's playing guard, he's playing center. Willie Lampkin's doing the same thing, playing center, he's playing guard. You look at Drew Kendall, he's playing center, he's playing guard. These backup interior offensive linemen that are, traditionally what we would label centers, those guys have been, they've been pretty damn versatile in camp. I was hoping that, we'd see him play a little guard as well as playing center and, feel confident about him. With that said, man, I got to be honest, nothing from his tape. This is not going to be one of those positive evaluations, guys. What I will say is this. There's time for him to, change the talking points around him. I don't think that anybody on this list of players that are deep on the roster is you could just write anyone out of the race right now. Miles Hinton had a couple holding calls, did not look good in this game. Big Fred barely played, so I'm not going to make much there. I didn't think that Michael Jordan as a veteran guy, I didn't love his tape, to be real with you guys, from this game. I thought Willie Lemkin definitely outplayed him, but I mean, it's not to the point to where like anyone's out of the race yet. Micah Morris, there was a play I thought Micah Morris kind of bailed him out, if I'm being honest. I thought Micah kind of saved his ass because he was getting ragdolled a little bit, and Micah is just a bigger, stronger guy. And that was one of the things I think showed up on tape about the situation with Jake Majors, is that it wasn't really the power guys that were the biggest issue for him. I thought he was getting exposed a little bit by speed rushers and speed interior players. I thought those guys that had a little bit of twitchiness to them in terms of the interior defensive line, I thought they were kind of becoming a little bit of a problem for Jake Majors. I thought like, oh boy, if this keeps going on in the game, and this is going to get exposed. This is not very good. Like he's struggling to keep up here. But I look at this and John Ajokwu and Holland Pierce, and I think Micah Morris, because he's a recent draft pick, and I think he's just a lot stronger, probably better shot to make it. I definitely think he's firmly behind Willie Lampkin, and he's not even in the same conversation as Drew Kendall, to be honest with you. But I mean, if you look at the other guys that we were talking about earlier, the Miles Hintons of the world and the Michael Jordans of the world, and players like that, guys like John Ajokwu, I don't think he's that far behind them. Holland Pierce, like I still think he's within consideration, if you will, for like a practice squad spot. And, it's going to depend upon the coaching staff and how they feel about him, and how many of these dudes out here even want to spend the time trying to develop certain talents. I don't know. That's something that, we have to see from the coaching staff, how they feel about certain players and whether or not they give a shit about developing these guys. It's going to be interesting because I don't know how they're going to shape this. Like, if you keep Big Fred, then it is kind of weird because I think your tackle positions are kind of taken. You got Big Fred out there, then, he's on your roster, then, that's going to impact the rest of the people that you could potentially put on a roster, because Markel Bell's also on that roster. So that's your two tackle spots right there. So then you're really talking about the interior offensive line, and Drew Kendall feels like a lot to me right now. Outside of Drew Kendall, guys, I mean, I would say the next closest thing that I saw on tape tonight to being a lock is probably between Willie Lampkin and Micah Morris. If I had to take a wild guess of keeping 10 players, my 5 backups right now will probably be Markel Bell, Big Fred, Drew Kendall, Willie Lampkin, and then probably Micah Morris. That's kind of what I took away from this game personally, guys. I thought that those players in particular looked the most competent. I mean, to be fair, even in his first, NFL action here, I will say that there was still a penalty called even on, one of my favorites, which is Micah Morris. I thought that Micah Morris still could play better, but I think he's a lot stronger than some of the other guys. I mean, I thought that you could see the displacement from Micah Morris more than you could from, players that, like the Miles Hinton didn't live up to what I thought he was going to be able to do out there. Jake Majors he was getting pushed back all night, if I'm being honest about it. But it is what it is, guys. I appreciate y'all's time and attention. Hey, guys, if you want more breakdowns, I'll throw you up some videos to your left and your right to go over player evaluations. I'll do the best I can to keep it in terms of the trenches. We'll talk a little bit more about the interior offensive line, offensive tackles, or we'll talk about the interior defensive line for you. So with that said, guys, I appreciate y'all's time and attention. I'm going to jump off here because we have a lot more guys to break down. So peace. I'm out of here.